Let's talk about how to contest your property valuation for um, property taxes. So, in other words, how do we lower the value that the county or the central appraisal district deems your house to be worth so that you can pay less taxes? So, there's only two ways to lower your property taxes. One, it's vote, and impact the tax rate that they're going to charge you. And then two, to contest these values to try to keep them as low as possible. And understand your tax valuation is not your home's appraisal. It's not what your home can sell for. It's just simply you're trying to tell them how much of a piece of junk a home you have. Because I don't care if it's brand new and the most beautiful home in the world. You try to convey it as though this is a dog of a house, and they're trying to lower that value. So this is the process that you go through. You can do it every single year, and I highly recommend that you do, or at least take a look and make sure it's worth contesting. So really and truly, this is where I'm going to highly, highly, highly recommend talking to a good one. And it's hard to find a good one, but there are folks out there, professionals that can and will contest your property valuations. I'll put the link down below to my buddy Evan. The problem is he's very specific, very busy because he's really good at what he does, and it's primarily Dallas County. So understand, I'm sorry if you're, and I understand that's a really small section, but at the end of the day, let me tell you just, kind of what the general public can do this. But let me just tell us some stories that really convey like how to do this and where the valuations lie. So I remember that when I first started working with Evan, I bet it was 15 plus years ago. We had a bunch of rental properties at the time. And I think I had at the time like 8 or 10. And I thought, there's no way. Like, I do this, don't worry. Like, we're fine. Man, I'm telling you, the guy lowered almost every one of them. And I was like, dang. And so the reason being is one, he's better at his job than I am doing it once a year. But even being in the business, I thought I'd be better than that. So what you're doing is you're trying to say, hey, look, my house, because of these conditions, the updates or the lack of updates I've done, compared to other homes in the neighborhood that have recently sold, you're trying to act like an appraiser. So look, that home across the street sold, and it's better than mine, and it sold for this, and it might should be lowered, by this much. So these valuations typically come out, at least in Texas, they come out early in the year, right? So the March-ish time period, and there is a deadline, so you have to contest within a certain amount of time. And I do recommend, I think you have to go in some counties in person, or some appraisal districts require you go in there. Others, yeah, I think you can mail it in or state your case. I'm telling you, do your homework, have it ready, because when you pay somebody, and I'm just going to use Evan as the example, man, the guy does tons and tons of homework. And then you can go down there and there's, let's say there's 4 people, 5 people, right, that do this. The professionals that work in that area, that specialize in that area, they may know these people, right? And so they may take a stack of files that say, okay, here's the 12 houses I think can work, but they might also take another 12 that they know won't work. It's a salesman's game to some degree. And the reason why is if you get chosen by somebody and there's 4 people, and let's say one of them's having a bad day, right? You go in and you realize, whoa, today's not a good day, and they're just not feeling real generous. You start throwing out your dummy files, the ones that you know you're probably not going to get thing floored anyway. And after about 3 no's, you might take one from the good stack and say, okay, this is the questionable stack. Like, maybe I can, maybe I can't. Throw it in there, and they'll say, you know what? I've given you 3 or 4 no's. Come on, help me out. And this one's a single mom or whatever story they want to give, and they can lower that value. So there is some politics around this. I'm not saying it's like that everywhere. I'm not saying it's like that all the time, but I am saying that it can happen like that. Versus sometimes you go in front of the committee and there's 3 or 4 people, and it can be very just hardcore, like, okay, man, you got to sit there and plead your case. And some of them, they're going to have like somebody who's an authority of the appraisal valuations in the neighborhood. Some of it can be the community say, hey, man, that Walmart just went in next door to me, and that's going to hurt my values. That needs to drive it down. So there's a lot that goes into this. So all I can say is just do your homework. Don't just go in there and be like, I don't like my value. You got to tell them why, tell them what it should be, and have documentation and proof of what it should be. And I've heard stories too where people gone down and they just, whether it's just somebody being super nice and sweet to somebody, taking them cookies, and they've lowered it. And I've had some where they're like, man, that guy's a jerk. He didn't even listen to me because they already made up their mind. So it's a wild card as far as how that works. But I can tell you, feel free to try it on your own. And if you can, find a really good professional. And the only thing I can say is just interview them, ask lots of questions. What do you do? How do you do it? Why do you do it? What's your success rate? What's on average? What do you get? What do you charge? All those things. So I would say get some help, because typically these guys, by the way, guys and gals that do the contesting of the valuation for you, they typically take a cut of whatever the savings are. So if there's no savings, they don't get paid. But if there is savings, And that's the other part too about finding a professional and having a relationship with them. Because even in the years that were, they may only make a few bucks, if you got a relationship with them, then they were there time after time after time. They're going to fight for you more and more and more. Versus if you keep bouncing around, if the fruits, if the low hanging fruit's been done, and they're like, yeah, this one's not worth it because I don't want to do all this work for just a few bucks. They don't want the really juicy ones. So if you just have a relationship and go back every year, I think you probably also would find more success. So I hope that helps. Certainly not something we can do, but I'd say reach out to your realtor to get the comps. Reach out to us if you don't have a realtor. We're happy to recommend you a really good one in your area. And let us know if you have any stories, good or bad or otherwise. We'd love to hear what it is and any tips or tricks that haven't been mentioned here. So this is what I recommend. Hire somebody, hire a professional and have them do it right. But if you have any questions, reach out to us. And as always, when you think mortgage, think more.